Cordelia's wedding dress caught on the church door as she stumbled into the blazing Missouri heat, her veil trailing behind her like a banner of defeat. The congregation's whispers still echoed in her ears, how Jasper Whitmore had mounted his horse and galloped away just as Reverend Paulson asked if anyone objected to their union. The man who'd courted her for 2 years, who'd promised her a home and children, had abandoned her at the altar without a word. She ran blindly through the wheat fields beyond Millbrook's dusty Main Street, her satin shoes shredding against the rough earth. Tears streamed down her face as she collapsed beside Silver Creek, her elaborate bustle crushing beneath her. The dress her mother had sewn with such hope now felt like a mockery, its pearl buttons and delicate lace taunting her with dreams that would never be. "Why do you weep alone, Wassakew Winyan?" The voice, deep and resonant, made her gasp. She spun around to find a man emerging from the cottonwood stall, bronze-skinned, with long black hair braided with eagle feathers. His buckskin shirt was decorated with intricate beadwork, and he moved with the fluid grace of a predator. This was no settler. This was Sioux, and judging by the war paint symbols on his chest, a warrior. "I don't speak your language," she whispered, instinctively, backing away, despite the gentleness in his dark eyes. "White woman," he translated, stepping closer. "I am Tokata of the Lakota. I ask again, why do you cry by our sacred waters?" Something in his voice, not threatening, but genuinely curious, made her shoulders sag. "Because I'm a fool. Because I believed in promises that meant nothing." She gestured at her ruined dress. "I was supposed to be married today." Takota studied her with an intensity that made her feel exposed. In her world, unmarried women past 25 were whispered about, pitied. At 26, she'd thought Jasper was her salvation from spinsterhood. Now she was worse than unmarried. She was abandoned. This man who promised he was not worthy. "Of you," Takata said simply. Cordelia laughed bitterly. "How would you know? You don't even know me. I know you have the courage to run from shame instead of drowning in it. I know you seek solitude by running water, as my people do when our spirits need healing." He crouched beside her, careful to maintain respectful distance. "And I know that a man who would break his word to someone with eyes like summer storms is a coward." Heat flooded her cheeks at the unexpected compliment. No one had ever compared her gray eyes to anything beautiful. Summer storms can be destructive, so can winter blizzards, but we do not curse them. We respect their power. His gaze never wavered. "What is your name?" "Cordelia Ashworth." She wiped her eyes with her torn veil. "Though I suppose it doesn't matter now. I'll be the laughingstock of 3 counties. Names always matter. They carry our essence." Takota stood, extending his hand. "Come the sun grows harsh, and you have no covering for your skin." She stared at his outstretched palm strong, scarred from battles she couldn't imagine, offering help when her own people had watched her humiliation with hungry eyes. Against all reason, she took his hand and let him pull her to her feet. Takota led her to a hidden grove where his paint horse grazed beneath ancient oaks, without asking permission. He draped his buckskin jacket around her shoulders, the soft leather carrying scents of sage smoke and summer grass. Cordelia pulled it closer, grateful for both the warmth and the way it covered her torn bodice. "Your people will search for you," he said, offering her water from a leather pouch. She shook her head. "My father died last winter. My mother remarried and moved to Kansas with her new husband. Jasper was." She swallowed hard. He was all I had left in Millbrook." "Then you have been freed from a cage you did not know you inhabited." His words struck her like lightning. In her desperation to avoid becoming a burden, she'd accepted Jasper's lukewarm courtship, his condescending smiles, his casual mentions of how fortunate she was that someone wanted her at her age. She'd been so grateful for the proposal that she'd ignored how his kisses felt like duty, how his hands never lingered, how he spoke of their future with all the enthusiasm of discussing crop rotation. "I don't understand you," she said finally. "We're enemies, aren't we? Your people and mine." Tokota's jaw tightened. "Some of your people killed my wife and son 3 winters ago. Raiders wearing blue coats burned our village while the men were hunting." His voice remained steady, but she saw the old pain flicker in his eyes. "I have reason to hate all Wassakew." Cordelia's breath caught. "Then why are you helping me?" "'Cause hatred is a poison that kills the one who carries it. settled against a tree trunk, his movements graceful despite his size. My grandmother. Singing Crow taught me that the Great Spirit sends us tests. Perhaps you are mine. What kind of test? To see if I can show mercy to one whose people showed none to mine. He studied her intently. Or perhaps you are the test, to see if you can trust one your people call savage. The word hit her like a slap. She'd heard it countless times in town. The way men spoke of Indians as if they were wild animals instead of human beings. Yet here sat Takeda, speaking with more wisdom and kindness than anyone in Millbrook had ever shown her. You're not savage, she said quietly. You're the first person today who's treated me like I matter. Something shifted in his expression, surprise, perhaps even respect. You matter, Cordelia Ashworth. Not let others convince you otherwise. The way he said her name, with such careful pronunciation, made her heart skip unexpectedly. Never heard it sound so ... significant. What does Tokata mean, friend to all? A wry smile touched his lips. My mother had great hopes for me, and are you, a friend to all? I try to be worthy of the name she gave me. He rose, extending his hand again. Come, I will take you somewhere safe while you decide what path. Your life will take now, Cordelia hesitated. Riding away with a Sioux warrior was madness. Her reputation would be destroyed, her safety uncertain. But staying in Millbrook meant facing pitying stares and whispered gossip, meant living forever as the woman who wasn't good enough to keep. She took his hand. Where? To my grandmother. He helped her onto his horse, settling behind her with practiced ease. Hold tight, summer storm. Your new life begins now. As they rode away from everything she'd ever known, Cordelia felt terror and exhilaration war in her chest. Behind them, church bells still rang in celebration of a wedding that had never happened. Ahead lay only wilderness and uncertainty, and for the first time in her life, it felt like freedom. Singing Crow's Lodge sat in a hidden valley 3 hours' ride from Millbrook, surrounded by medicine plants and protected by towering pines. The elderly Lakota woman emerged as they approached, her weathered face impassive as she took in Cordelia's disheveled wedding dress and her grandson's protective posture behind her. Grandmother, Tokota said in English, clearly for Cordelia's benefit, this is Cordelia. She has been betrayed and needs sanctuary. Singing Crow approached the horse, her dark eyes studying Cordelia with unsettling intensity. When she spoke, her accented English carried the weight of ancient wisdom. The spirits whispered of your coming, white daughter. They said you would arrive dressed for one life, but ready for another. Cordelia slid from the horse, Takeda's hand steadying her. I don't understand. Few do, when the winds have changed first. Blow. Singing Crow circled her slowly, like a hawk evaluating prey. This dress is a costume for playing a part you were never meant for. Come, we will burn it and see who you truly are beneath. Burn it. Cordelia clutched the torn satin. But it cost... What did it cost you, child? Your dignity? Your truth? Your chance at real love? The old woman's voice was stern, but not unkind. Some prices are too high to pay. Inside the lodge, Singing Crow's movements were economical and sure, as she prepared herbal tea and laid out simple doeskin clothing. You will stay here while you heal. Tokota will hunt and provide protection. When the new moon rises, we will know if this arrangement serves the Great Spirit's purpose. I can't impose. You are not imposing. You are answering a call. Singing Crow fixed her with that penetrating stare. My grandson has carried the burden of loss for too long. Perhaps caring for someone who also understands betrayal will teach him that not all wounds are meant to remain open forever. That evening, as they sat around the fire in simple deerskin clothing, Cordelia felt more herself than she had in years. The doeskin was soft against her skin, practical yet beautiful in its simplicity. Tokota had painted traditional designs on her hand symbols for new beginnings and strength, while his grandmother told stories of warrior women who had shaped Lakota history. You have good hands, Tokota murmured, as he traced the delicate bones of her wrist with berry dye. Strong, made for important work. What kind of work? She asked, hyper-aware of his touch. Whatever calls to your spirit. His fingers lingered on her pulse point. In my world, a woman chooses her path based on her gifts, not what others expect of her. And what do you think my gifts are? He met her eyes, and she saw something there that made her breath catch not pity or duty, but genuine interest. I think you have the gift of seeing clearly once you stop looking through others' eyes. I think you have the courage to start over. When starting over seems impossible, his thumb brushed across her knuckles. And I think you have a heart that can love deeply, if you find someone worthy of that love. Heat bloomed in her chest at his words, at his touch. In Millbrook, men had courted her with obligations and convenience. Tokoda spoke to her as if she were valuable, powerful, worthy of respect. Tell me about your wife, she said softly. His hand stilled on hers, but he didn't pull away. Ayana was sunlight. She laughed at everything, found joy in small moments. Our son Wickaby had her spirit, his voice roughened. They died because I wasn't there to protect them. I was hunting when the soldiers came. It wasn't your fault. Knowledge and feeling are different things. He looked at her with such raw honesty that her heart ached. I have been dead inside since that day. But today, helping you, I felt something stir, something I thought was buried forever. Cordelia turned her hand, palm threading their fingers together. Maybe we're both learning to live again. Maybe. He squeezed her hand gently. Would that frighten you? She considered the question seriously. 3 days ago, her greatest fear had been remaining unmarried. Now, she was holding hands with a Sioux warrior in his grandmother's lodge, contemplating a life completely outside everything she'd ever known. It should, she admitted, but it doesn't. For the first time, I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Over the following weeks, Cordelia discovered abilities she'd never known she possessed, and under Singing Crow's patient instruction. She learned to identify medicinal plants, to prepare healing salves, to read the subtle signs that predicted weather changes. Her soft settler's hands grew strong from working leather and gathering roots. Most surprising of all, she found she had an intuitive understanding of the horses Dakota bred and trained.
Look.
How she gentles that mare, Singing Crow observed. One morning as Cordelia worked with a skittish paint that had previously allowed no one near her, the animals trust her. That is a rare gift. Takoda watched from the corral fence, his expression unreadable. Over the past month, their connection had deepened through shared work and quiet conversations by the fire. He'd shown her how to track deer, how to read stories in the sky. She'd taught him to read English words, her hands guiding his as they traced letters in the dust. But he maintained careful boundaries, never pushing for more than friendship despite the electricity that sparked between them whenever they touched. She's beautiful, Cordelia murmured, stroking the mare's velvety nose. What's her name? Wania, the breath of life.
Right.
Dakota vaulted over the fence with fluid grace. She lost her foal last spring. Since then, she has trusted no one. She's grieving, Cordelia said simply, understanding flooding through her. She thinks if she doesn't let anyone close, she can't be hurt again. Their eyes met across the horse's neck, and she saw her own realization reflected in his gaze. They were both like Wania, wounded, wary, protecting themselves by keeping their hearts locked away. Cordelia, he said quietly, there's something you should know. Word has reached us from Millbrook. Her blood chilled. What word? Jasper. Whitmore has been telling people you ran away with a lover. He's claiming you were unfaithful, that he discovered your betrayal moments before the ceremony. Tokoda's jaw tightened with barely controlled anger. He's making himself appear the wronged party. The betrayal hit her like a physical blow. Not only had Jasper abandoned her, but now he was destroying what remained of her reputation to save his own. People believe him? Some do. Others remember that you never gave them reason to doubt your character. Singing Crow joined them, her weathered face grave. But the story spreads. Soon, all the territory will whisper of Cordelia Ashworth's shame. Sank onto a log, overwhelmed. Even here, in this place where she'd found peace and purpose, her past reached out to destroy her future. I can never go back. Not ever. Would you want to? Toga asked, settling beside her. Even if you could? She considered the question seriously. The woman who'd fled Millbrook in a torn wedding dress felt like a stranger now. That Cordelia had been desperate, willing to accept scraps of affection from a man who didn't deserve her. This Cordelia knew her own worth. No, she said finally. I wouldn't go back, but what future do I have here? I'm not Lakota. I don't truly belong in your world either. Belonging is not about blood, Singing Crow said firmly. It is about heart. About choosing to love and be loved in return. She glanced meaningfully between Cordelia and Tokada. Some bridges are built by the Great Spirit, connecting souls that were always meant to find each other. Dakota stood abruptly, pacing to the corral fence. Grandmother, don't what? Speak truth. The old woman's voice sharpened. You care for her. She cares for you. Yet both of you dance around feelings like frightened children. Because I have nothing to offer her but danger, Dakota said roughly. My people face an uncertain future. War comes closer every day. I cannot ask her to share that burden, and I cannot ask you to risk everything for someone like me, Cordelia added, quietly. A woman with a ruined reputation, no family, no prospects. I bring nothing but trouble to your life, Singing Crow threw up her hands in exasperation. Foolish children, you both carry wounds from those who failed to see your worth. But wounds can become wisdom if you let them. She pointed at the mare, who now stood peacefully under Cordelia's gentle touch. Even Winia knows that healing requires courage. The courage to trust again, to love again, to risk again. As if summoned by her words, riders appeared on the ridge above them, blue-coated soldiers, led by a familiar figure that made Cordelia's heart sink with dread. Jasper, she breathed. Tokada's hand went instinctively to his knife. How did they find us? Doesn't matter, Singing Crow said grimly. What matters is what we do now. Lieutenant Morrison led the small cavalry unit down into the valley. Jasper Whitmore riding beside him with the self-righteous expression of a man convinced of his own virtue. Cordelia counted 8 soldiers, all armed, all watching Dakota with the wary alertness of men expecting trouble. Miss Ashworth, Lieutenant, Morrison called as they approached, his voice carrying false authority. We've come to escort you back to civilization. You've clearly been taken against your will by this savage. I wasn't taken anywhere, Cordelia replied, stepping forward with her chin raised. I came willingly, and I'm staying willingly. Jasper's face flushed red above his carefully waxed mustache. Cordelia, you don't know what you're saying? This heathen has clearly addled your mind with his primitive superstitions. Come home, and we'll put this unfortunate episode behind us. I'm prepared to overlook your indiscretions. Indiscretions? The word came out like a whip crack. You left me at the altar, Jasper. You humiliated me in front of the entire congregation, then spread lies about my character to cover your own cowardice. Now you want to overlook my indiscretions? I saved us both from a terrible mistake, Jasper said, dismounting with theatrical flair. A woman who would run off with savages the very day of her wedding clearly isn't fit to be any decent man's wife. But I'm Christian enough to offer you redemption. Tokada moved like lightning, placing himself between Jasper and Cordelia. You will not speak of her that way. Stand down, boy, Lieutenant Morrison barked, his hand moving to his sidearm. A door? Here on official business. Miss Ashworth is a white woman being held by hostile Indians. That's a federal crime. I'm not being held, Cordelia said firmly. I'm exactly where I choose to be. A woman in your condition can't make rational choices, Jasper said with patronizing certainty. You've been through a traumatic experience. These people have taken advantage of your vulnerable state. My vulnerable state? Fury built in Cordelia's chest like a gathering storm. You mean the vulnerable state you created by abandoning me? It's the trauma you caused by humiliating me publicly, then lying about my character to save face? Now see here, Jasper began. No, you see here. Cordelia's voice carried a power she'd never known she possessed. For 2 years, I convinced myself I was lucky that you showed interest in me. I accepted your condescending comments about my age, your lukewarm affection, your casual cruelty, because I thought I didn't deserve better. But I was wrong. She moved to stand beside Tokada, her hand finding his. This man has shown me more respect and kindness in 6 weeks than you did in 2 years. His grandmother has treated me like precious family from the moment we met. Seen worth in me that I didn't even know existed. So no, Jasper, I won't be coming back to grovel for scraps of your attention. You're talking about marrying a savage? Jasper spit, his mask of civility finally slipping. Your children would be half-breeds, outcasts from both worlds. Think about what you're throwing away. I'm thinking about what I'm gaining, Cordelia replied steadily. A life with someone who values me, respects me, sees me as an equal partner, rather than a burden to be tolerated. Lieutenant Morrison shifted impatiently in his saddle. Miss, whatever romantic notions you've developed, the fact remains that tensions are rising between our peoples. War is coming, and when it does, you'll be caught in the middle. Come with us now, before it's too late. War is coming because men like you refuse to honor treaties, refuse to see my people as human beings worthy of respect, Tokita said quietly. If you truly cared about Cordelia's safety, you would leave us in peace. Peace. Morrison laughed harshly. There can be no peace between our races. It's us or you, savage. The sooner you understand that, the better. Singing Crow, who had remained silent throughout the confrontation, finally spoke. Young soldier, you speak of war as if it is inevitable. But nothing is inevitable except death. Every day we choose. Between the path of hatred and the path of understanding, my grandson and this brave woman have chosen understanding. What path will you choose? Morrison's face hardened. Miss Ashworth, I'm giving you one final opportunity to come peacefully. Refuse, and we'll be forced to take you. Cordelia felt Dakota tense beside her, saw his free hand drift toward his knife. The soldiers fingered their weapons nervously. One wrong word, one sudden movement, and blood would flow in this peaceful valley. 8, she said, squeezing Takeda's hand. She had an idea. Dangerous, but possibly their only chance. Jasper, you said you're prepared to overlook my indiscretions if I return with you? Cordelia? No, Tokita said quietly, but she pressed on, meeting Jasper's eyes with steady determination. Then prove it. Marry me. Right here, right now, in front of these witnesses. The words hung in the air like a challenge thrown down before destiny itself. Jasper's face went through a rapid series of expressions, surprise, calculation, and finally panic. Here, now. That's impossible. There's no preacher, no. Proper ceremony. Lieutenant Morrison is an officer in the United States Army, Cordelia said smoothly. He has the authority to perform marriages in frontier territories. Isn't that right, Lieutenant? Morrison nodded slowly, clearly seeing where she was heading. I do have that authority. Yes. Then it's settled. Cordelia released Dakota's hand and stepped toward Jasper, ignoring the anguish that flashed across the warrior's face. If you truly believe I'm worth saving, if you honestly want to make me your wife, then do it. Prove your devotion by claiming me right here in front of these witnesses without delay. But Jasper was already backing away, his Adam's apple bobbing frantically. This is preposterous. A proper Christian wedding requires what? A groom who actually wants to marry the bride? Cordelia's voice cut like steel.
Yes.
It's becoming quite clear that you don't. Of course I want to, that is, under proper circumstances. What circumstances? Exactly. She advanced on him relentlessly. When you can be sure everyone will praise you for your charity in taking damaged goods? When you've had time to negotiate exactly how grateful I should be for the rest of our marriage? Jasper's mouth opened and closed like a landed fish. Around them, the soldiers shifted uncomfortably, several exchanging glances that suggested they were beginning to see through his noble rescue narrative. The truth is, Cordelia continued, her voice carrying to every man present, you never wanted to marry me at all. You courted me because I was convenient, safe, grateful. You left me at the altar because even that lukewarm commitment was more than you could stomach. And you came here today not to save me, but to save your reputation? That's not never, then marry me, she challenged. Right now, prove me wrong. The silence stretched taut as a bowstring. Finally, Jasper's shoulders sagged in defeat. I can't, he whispered. Why not? Because... He swallowed hard, his face flushing with shame. "'Cause I'm already married. I wed Constance Holloway 3 days after I left you at the altar. She's with child." The revelation hit like a thunderclap. Several soldiers straightened, in their saddles, staring at Jasper with newfound disgust. Even Lieutenant Morrison's expression hardened. "You son of a bitch," one of the younger soldiers breathed. "So let me understand this correctly," Cordelia said, her voice deadly calm. "You courted me for 2 years while planning to marry someone else. You abandoned me at the altar to wed your pregnant mistress. Then you spread lies about my character to cover your own adultery and deception. Now you have the audacity to come here claiming you want to save me." Jasper couldn't meet her eyes. "Cordelia, please understand." "Oh, I understand perfectly." She turned to face Lieutenant Morrison. "Now do you see what kind of man you're helping? What kind of civilization you're trying to force me back to?" Morrison's jaw worked silently. Around him, his men were muttering among themselves, their earlier hostility toward Dakota replaced by disgust for Jasper. Finally, the lieutenant spoke. "Mr. Whitmore, I think you should return to Millbrook. Immediately. But she's a grown woman making her own choices." Morrison cut him off sharply. "Choices that are starting to make a hell of a lot more sense than they did an hour ago." As Jasper mounted his horse with fumbling haste, clearly eager to escape the condemning stares, Cordelia felt a hand touch her shoulder. She turned to find Takeda behind her, his eyes warm with admiration and something deeper. "That was bravely done," he said quietly. "I learned from the best." She managed a shaky smile. "A wise warrior once told me that some battles can only be won by forcing your enemy to reveal their true nature." Lieutenant Morrison cleared his throat. "Miss Ashworth, my orders were to bring you back if you were being held against your will. It's clear that's not the case." He paused, studying her face intently. "Are you certain this is what you want? The path you're choosing won't be easy." "Nothing worthwhile ever is," she replied. "But yes, I'm certain." Morrison nodded slowly. "Then I wish you luck." He gestured to his men. "Mount up. We're heading back." As the soldiers prepared to leave, the young Private Hood cursed Jasper. "Rode closer, ma'am. For what it's worth, you're making the right choice. Any fool can see that Indian respects you more than Whitmore ever did." After the dust of their departure settled, Singing Crow approached with a knowing smile. "Well, granddaughter, you have passed the test the spirits set before you." "What test?" "The test of choosing truth over comfort, courage over safety, love over convenience." The old woman's eyes twinkled. "The real work begins." 8. Takeda took Cordelia's hands in his thumbs tracing across her knuckles. "Are you ready for that work? For whatever comes next?" She looked into his eyes and saw her future, certain, challenging, but filled with genuine love and respect. "I've never been more ready for anything in my life." The wedding ceremony took place at sunset. 3 days later, beneath the ancient cottonwood where Dakota and Cordelia had first spoken of healing hearts, Singing Crow had spent those days teaching Cordelia the sacred traditions of Lakota marriage. While members of Takeda's band arrived to witness the union that even the wisest among them agreed was guided by the spirits themselves. "In our tradition," Singing Crow explained as she painted intricate designs on Cordelia's face with red and white clay, "marriage is not just the joining of two people, but the creation of new possibilities. You bring your gifts to strengthen each other and your tribe." Cordelia wore a dress of soft white doeskin, decorated with beadwork and porcupine quills, each design telling a story of new beginnings and lasting love. Dakota had worked for days on her wedding moccasins, crafting them with the same care he'd once reserved for weapons of war. The transformation from the woman who'd fled Millbrook in a torn, tattered gown felt complete and profound, as the sun painted the sky in shades of gold and crimson. Dakota and Cordelia stood before their gathered friends and family. His uncle, Chief Wambley, spoke the ancient words while sweet sage smoke carried their vows to the heavens. "Before all who witness," Dakota said, his voice strong and sure, "I take Cordelia as my wife, my partner, my equal in all things. I promise to honor her wisdom, protect her dreams, and walk beside her through whatever storms may come. The Great Spirit and all assembled here, Cordelia replied, her voice clear and unwavering. I take Tokid as my husband, my protector, my heart's true home. I promise to stand with him in joy and sorrow, to share his burdens and celebrate his victories, to love him with all that I am for all the days of my life. They exchanged gifts. He gave her a magnificent painted shield, bearing symbols of protection and eternal love. She gave him a war shirt she'd sewn herself, decorated with beadwork that told the story of their meeting and courtship. When they shared the ritual cup of sacred water, representing the blending of their lives, tears of joy flowed freely among the witnesses, but it was the final ceremony that moved even the most stoic warriors to tears. Singing Crow brought forth a beautiful paint Marijuana, the horse who had learned to trust again. This mare was like you both, the elder said, her weathered hand stroking the horse's neck. Wounded, afraid to love, protecting her heart from further pain. But with patience and kindness, she learned to trust again. She is my gift to you, reminder that healing is always possible when we have courage to open our hearts. As the celebration continued long into the night with drumming, dancing, and storytelling, Cordelia found herself swept up in the joy and acceptance of her new family. Children who had initially been shy around the white woman now competed for her attention. Elderly women shared their wisdom with her as if she'd been born among them. And young warriors spoke to her with the respect due a chief's wife. Do you have any regrets? Dakota asked during a quiet moment as they walked hand in hand beside the creek where they'd first met. Cordelia considered the question seriously. I regret the years I wasted thinking I wasn't worthy of real love. I regret believing that settling for scraps of affection was better than standing alone. But I don't regret any of the pain that brought me to you. It's not even being left at the altar. She laughed, the sound like silver bells in the twilight. Especially not that. If Jasper had married me, I would never have found my true home, my real family, my actual soulmate. In a strange way, his betrayal was the greatest gift he could have given me. Dakota pulled her into his arms, his lips finding hers in a kiss that spoke of promises kept and dreams fulfilled. The spirits work in mysterious ways. Indeed they do. She smiled up at him, this man who had taught her that she deserved to be cherished, who had shown her strength she never knew she possessed, who had proven that love built on respect and partnership was worth any sacrifice. 5 years later, as Cordelia watched their twin sons play beside the same creek where their love story began, she reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. The path had not always been easy there, had been conflicts with both white settlers and rival tribes. Seasons of hardship, moments when their different backgrounds created challenges to overcome. But through it all, they had faced each obstacle as partners. Their love growing stronger, with every trial survived together. She had never shed another tear of despair. The woman who had once been left at the altar had become a respected medicine. Woman, beloved wife, devoted mother, and bridge between two worlds, often at war. In learning to love herself, she had found a love that would last forever, and in the distance, Wanya grazed peacefully with her new full-living proof that broken hearts can heal. Wounded souls can learn to trust again, and sometimes the greatest betrayals lead to the most beautiful beginnings. The summer storms in her eyes had become gentle rains that nourished new life, and she would never be the same.